Well, hi there. I am Andrew Watkins, and if you're listening to this while juggling 3 patient calls, checking in a couple patients, taking a payment, selling skincare, and trying to catch your doctor in between procedures, you might be working in an aesthetic practice.
And I'm Blake Lucas, and this is Practice Land. This is not your doctor's podcast.
Hi, this is Andrew Watkins, and you are listening to Practice Land, the podcast where we help you tame the chaos, get shit done, and gain the recognition you deserve. So today we have Bridgette DeBrino here. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you. So, we wanted to talk a little bit to you today about your career path. You have a really great example about having a love for aesthetics, being in the industry for a really long time, and then kind of breaking off and doing a few other things, and never burning bridges along the way, maintaining really, really great relationships. And so, it's just a really wonderful example to share with our listeners who may be, senior in the industry or just starting out and really wondering what's really out there, what's available, and how do we really enjoy ourselves, become successful, and really follow the path that we're called to. So, first, just spill the tea a little bit. Like, how did you get into aesthetics?
It's always been a passion of mine. It's funny, even my grandmothers were involved in aesthetics on both sides. They loved that world, the beauty world. Anything that could make people feel good and feel better about themselves was something that they were passionate about. And I've loved it since I was a little girl. My mom has pictures of me with bright red lipstick when I was like 3 years old. I turned my cute little dress into like a halter, and I just thought I was this grown little woman.
Yeah.
But I started through getting certified, honestly, in everything that I could get certified in aesthetics. So I took a couple years and just really jumped into every single part that I could so that I was really well rounded. I like having options. I didn't want to be restrained to just one piece. So started with just a cosmetology license, skincare license, and then a laser and electrolysis license, and it expanded out from there.
Awesome. And how long ago was that you started getting your certifications and learning more?
Oh, it's 15 years, a little over 15 years at this point, which is kind of scary to say. I don't know where the time goes. It goes quite
I
quick.
mean, that's amazing. So you started when you were like 10? Because you're like
Yeah,
25 now, right?
exactly. Exactly. I'm so happy you understood what I was putting down.
Exactly. That's the joy about our industry too, is the perks of, having really great access to all the great skincare and the things that we learn along the way too.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
cliff notes, you
Mhm.
started off, you learned a ton,
Yes.
more on the clinical side as far as being a provider
Mhm.
and doing some of those things. Where did you go from there?
So I ended up in Dr. Allenby's office and I worked for her for 14 years. So I started as a clinical component to her practice and I was doing the laser hair removal, aesthetic services, and then she trained me to be one of her medical assistants. So obviously that opened me up to the world of med spa services and I was trained on all the various devices that we had in her practice. And then eventually that evolved and we started to really hyper focus on body contouring and that provided me an opportunity to step into more of the marketing piece of her business. At that point, I was feeling like, okay, I really love what I'm doing, but I do really feel this call to do more. I want to use my mind just as much as I'm using my hands. I loved patient engagement, but I definitely just felt the need to continue to expand. So she gave me the opportunity to start dabbling in the marketing for the practice. And then that evolved to us coming up with the concept of Body Squad. And that was a second practice that was fully dedicated just to body contouring treatments. So, cool sculpting, cool tone, Morpheus. We had the privilege of being able to pilot the Rasonic device for about 3 years, which was absolutely incredible. And when that transition took place, she afforded me the opportunity to really just run with that practice. So I was overseeing everything from start to finish and building that team out, building out the services that we use, the marketing, just really handling all the operations. And I had my hand in both practices. So I handled back end operations for both her derm clinic, her aesthetic derm clinic, and then for the body contouring clinic as well.
I love that you have both the clinician side and experience and lens, as well as the administrative sales and marketing side, because typically those are two very, very different mindsets. What was the biggest mindset shift that you needed or that you think that you went through in the transition between clinical into the more business operation sales marketing because they're different?
They're so different, so that's why this answer is gonna be interesting. They played so beautifully. The fact that I had that clinical experience, the fact that I experienced that perspective as an employee, but experienced it in the eyes of a patient and experienced it from the combination of the two, I really think is what led me to be successful in that next role. There's a lot of nuances to our industry and to our space. And I think anybody that you talk to that's a practitioner, they have their unique way of communicating with a patient. And even though they have their unique approach, there are still certain things that just we know speak to a patient's heart because we're talking to them all day long and we genuinely care. Our heart does want to
Mhm.
reach the hearts of our patients. We want to connect with them. We want to build that rapport. So, actually, even though they're two different mindsets doing completely different work, they blended so beautifully, and I really think that that is what helped me to understand how to achieve success in the marketing and sales component because I understood what it looked like from the other side of the lens. So it was a much more organic approach, and I think that anybody who's been in this space for any amount of time, the amount of marketing services that are out there are astronomical, and unfortunately, oftentimes you're promised the earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars. And, we're lucky if we get a pebble out of it. And it's
Yeah.
because traditional methods do not work in the aesthetic space. It is so nuanced. There's so many small details that can really make or break a campaign. There's a lot of rules and regulations around what we can and cannot say and do in the marketing world when it comes to the medical aesthetic space. So, again, I think all of it just blended really beautifully. And I'm a firm believer that when you're building and scaling a team, one of the most valuable things you can do is have these team members start from a baseline and work through the company versus just putting them in roles in a company because that's how you get that well-rounded and organic approach to what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. Having the experience and
Mhm.
in those shoes and in that seat really does give a more holistic approach to, oh, we really need to think not just one track mind, how do we get butts in chairs, but
Right.
how do we make sure that these are great patients that we're going to build long-term relationships with and really be able to treat and help them have very realistic expectations about what
Yes.
we can and cannot do
Yes.
so that we can, again, develop a long-term relationship and have that continue our cycle of also going into referrals and all the other things that we need when we're trying to build and grow a business, as
Mhm.
well as, of course, maintain really great patient relationships. So
Exactly.
I love that. So by the time you had gone through the clinical, you moved over into the sales administration operations, how long were you kind of doing everything in your old practice?
Forever. To be totally honest. I mean, obviously, the amount of time that I spent doing any type of clinical work was significantly reduced, but
Yeah.
down to the last day, I mean, to be honest with you, even after my last day, my very first week of officially not being with the practice anymore, I went in to cover an emergency situation to help treat patients for one day. It's just you do what you need to do in this space, and these teams become more than just people that you work with, and you care
Yep.
about these individuals and you care about these patients. You've
Yep.
heard their stories. Oftentimes we've been around them for years, and so you just want to put them first, and you want what's best for everybody that's involved in the circumstances. So I
Yeah, there's a clear passion that shines through in what you're saying of all the different hats that you wore and the
Mhm.
seats that you got to sit in as a provider and an administrator and all the different things. What did you love the most about being in your role when you were in the practice?
I really learned to love the business side. And I think I loved the business side as much as I did because it was still so entrenched in the aesthetic side. So it wasn't
Mhm.
like I was just sitting there and looking at boring spreadsheets, but we were.
Did you just call spreadsheets boring? You need a backup. No.
I'm sorry. No, of course not. They're brilliant.
I'm just teasing.
No, but it was definitely so satisfying to see all of that hard work start to come together and paint a picture. So you start to invest in the education of your teammates and you start to build them up and build into them. And then you see how they start to transition with how they're engaging with patients. And then the patient engagement transitions into increased sales. Increased sales affords us to, invest more in marketing. And it's just a really beautiful circle. And it was so enjoyable to watch how all these pieces could play together and then how we could adjust and how we could pivot and how we could make exceptions here, but we had to stay firm in this sector. So that piece of it, it just felt like a constant puzzle that we were always building out and always trying to piece together. And I really enjoyed every day felt like a learning experience.
That's incredible. So you're doing this, you're loving it, you're
Mhm.
growing your team, you're empowering your team members, you have all these happy patients. When was it that you just kind of got the thought, maybe it's time to do something different and take everything that I've done now and move into something new? How did you kind of come about that? And then what was this next new adventure for you?
That was a really it was probably one of the hardest decisions of my life because it felt like I was leaving a family and, definitely had a lot of emotions around it, and it took me quite a while to make a final decision. We started to see a pivot in the body contouring sector, so we pivoted, and, the final piece of it was, it's such a silly thing, but we had a huge construction project pop up right next to us. Literally, the building was physically attached to us at one point,
Mhm.
and they started at basically a 20-story high rise. And that was after so many other shifts that had happened. Obviously, cool sculpting got hit pretty hard with the Linda Evangelista stories, and then we had GLP-1s hit the market, and that totally transformed how we treated patients and what
Yep.
the patient's needs were. So we ended up moving the business back into our initial practice. So, Body Squad and Allenby Cosmetic Dermatology merged, and that was exciting and great for a lot of reasons. But at that point, it really felt like this team that I had been working with and really striving to grow through all these years, it felt like if I stayed, there was an opportunity for growth for them anymore. At least I couldn't see it, and
Mhm.
that's I think the number one killer is when your team doesn't see a way to continue to move forward and to move up.
Yeah.
Everybody has that right and deserves that privilege. And everybody here had dedicated a lot of their heart and soul to making all these things a success. And I didn't want to be what was standing in the way of that. But in addition to that, personally, for me, I also was starting to feel like I hit that ceiling and it was
Mhm.
feeling like, okay, I wanna make sure I'm showing up as my best self. I wanna make sure I'm coming to work happy and motivated and that I can continue to motivate and give of myself, and I felt like I was starting to lose that.
Yeah.
And I gave it a good amount of time. I gave it quite a while from when I started feeling it to when I actually talked to the doctor was a significant amount of time, and then even after
Like
that
how much time?
almost a year, I would
Oh,
say,
wow.
because
Okay.
I really wanted to be sure that it wasn't just again, you go through ups and downs and ebbs and flows, and I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just something that we could kind of overcome and then pivot to another direction.
Mhm.
And it became clear that no, these are very real things and they need to be addressed and we need to talk through it. And then once I did talk to her, I actually gave the office 6 months notice. So it was
Yeah.
not a quick situation. I didn't want to leave with anybody feeling like they had pressure on their shoulders that they weren't prepared for. I didn't want anyone to feel surprised. I know
Yeah.
over the years when I lost team members that I loved working with, and if it was a shorter amount of time that was given, it was so difficult because you had to rally everybody else, get everybody else to feel okay and comfortable and confident. I just didn't want to do that to anybody. So I wanted
Yeah.
to ensure that I left on the best terms possible.
Yeah, did you have any fears when you made the
Yes.
decision?
Yes.
What did that feel like just for you personally to think I mean, I assume part of that is you're going into the unknown. Did you already know what you were gonna do next? Did you have
No.
those next steps planned out, or you were just like, "This just isn't isn't gonna be the future?"
Yeah, no, not at all. I didn't. I really wanted to take time to just reconnect with myself, rebalance, restructure, really figure out where my priorities lied, what was fueling my heart, where I wanted to go. And to be completely frank, I wasn't even sure I was going to stay in aesthetics. I felt like I had done everything that I could do in the space because I had such an incredible woman that I was working for, and she supported me in all of my initiatives and all of my endeavors, obviously offered me incredible opportunities to learn and grow. So I already felt like I worked for the best of the best. So where am I going to go in aesthetics that's going to, be better than
Top
this?
this. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
it just felt like it was time to actually move on and start to explore other things and really start to maybe play with this passion that I had found around business and see how I could develop that. And I was really looking into med tech and things along those lines. AI has definitely got my attention, and that was something that I was heavily exploring. And then, but to your question, I mean, I was terrified. It was a massive decision, and in making it, you don't even realize how much of your identity is wrapped up in what you do day to day. And I wasn't
Mhm.
anticipating that. I really didn't think that I had that as a part of me, but it was. And it's nerve wracking. Obviously, with the economy being what it was, I was leaving a very secure job that I did appreciate with a team that I loved. And it was very nerve wracking. I'm still a little bit scared, even though I've made the jump.
So how
Okay.
long ago was the end of the 6 months?
So I ended with them in April. So it hasn't
Okay.
been too long.
Oh,
I've
no, it's pretty recent
it
still, like,
is
I mean, you could still squirt a little lemon on there and it probably ouch a little bit.
a little
Uh,
bit, yeah.
so what are you doing now?
So I am now with an incredible company called Belvara. So I'm leading the way on another startup, which I swear I'd never do again, but here we are.
Mhm.
But I'm so excited. I have some really incredible partners in the space, and we chatted truly for probably about almost the entirety of those 6 months. So I met them just shortly after sharing the news with Dr. Allenby, and then I started conversations with them, and those conversations pivoted quite a bit over those months and just exploring, what the aesthetic space looked like. They have a deep medical history, and they were looking to expand into aesthetics for the last few years, and they had dabbled with a few different ideas. And throughout those conversations, this concept of Belvara was born. And it was born through really healthy conversations around what's working in the aesthetic space, what isn't, what led to feeling a bit burnt out in these sectors. And then how can we solve for that? How can we correct? And really, that's how we approach this. It's like, okay, what is within our control to improve upon within the space? And now
Mhm.
let's build on that. So, Belvara is an aesthetic collective, aesthetic and wellness, really, where we are providing physical suites for entrepreneurs who would really like to explore essentially having their own mini practice. And the piece that really distinguishes us is outside of having these beautiful suites available to you, we provide all of the back end support that you could possibly need in order to run your practice. So we provide the medical oversight, malpractice insurance, incredible marketing support. There's even on site support. And that's just like the top layer. So essentially, this is a turnkey operation. If you have a practitioner who is highly passionate about what they're doing and is extremely qualified and has loyal patients who are ready to follow them wherever they go, it's an incredible opportunity to them for them. And I'm so excited because it was one of the pieces that was so hard for me. There was always this point
Mm.
where I did feel like some team members hit ceilings, and I could tell that they wanted more, but I knew they loved what they were doing, loved who they were doing it with, but they had this itch for more. And I feel like this really does solve for that. And it affords people the opportunity to take control of their life and gain much more financial freedom and still do it in a very structured, supported, and most importantly, safe way. We're ensuring that everything is at the top tier of the standards in the space.
Got it. So from the provider's perspective,
Mhm.
are these estheticians, RNs, PAs, NPs?
All of the above. I've even had
Okay.
some conversations with doctors,
Okay.
who are just looking to streamline and simplify, which I love.
Yeah.
It's open to really anybody who, again, is striving to be the best of the best within their space. So it's something that can be for any of those sectors that you just mentioned. And ideally, I really want a very healthy mix of health and wellness. I'd love to have some hormone and IV health in here. I'd even love to have like a psychologist, maybe somebody who helps with stretching, maybe even teeth whitening. There's just so many different directions that we could take this, and I'm really excited to see how we do and how it builds out.
That's interesting, and it's making me think of, kind of go back to where it all started with the cosmetology license and everything, how
Mhm.
people go and they'll go into a salon and rent a chair,
Yes,
basically, and then the person who owns the salon carries the liability insurance and all those types of things, but then you just come in. So then with the providers, they just pay you a flat fee on a
mhm,
monthly basis, and that covers the insurance and everything that you guys are doing as a business and the marketing, and then
exactly.
they pay you, and financially, then their bill is done for the month, and whatever they're making is theirs.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
we wanted to keep it very simple, very streamlined. We're not taking a piece of their business. We're not taking a percentage. We felt
Yeah,
like that was very important because it's their business. We're
right.
providing services. So is just you would pay for a service. That's customary, that's normal, but they should be able to benefit from the complete upside of their hard work and their initiatives. The only other thing that would they would be responsible for is their consumable, but we set up the accounts for them. We handle the negotiations. We provide better pricing, and that will only get better as the company continues to grow. But these are things that we've built into the model. But that is the only piece outside of our monthly fee that they would obviously be paying for in addition.
Interesting. I love
Mhm.
it. That's a really, that's a great model,
Yeah.
for people. Also, a lot of the providers are moms, or they have all these other things where they don't really have the ability to maybe work full time, and so this gives them flexibility with their schedules and things like that, which I know for working in dozens of practices across the nation and having all these clients, there's a lot of people that are like, I can only work 2 days a week or this or that
Mhm.
or the other. And now they can actually control that
I'm so happy
and
you
have
said
that.
that. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that was actually one of the driving pieces is that, especially over the last 15, 20 years, as women, we've definitely been told we can do it all and we should do it all. And this is that, this is where, and, everybody's just been in boss girl mode. And now
Yeah.
we're seeing
Or
the,
you're a failure and you're like,
yes.
no, there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you shouldn't have to be penalized if you want to have a career and you want to have a family and you want to have a life. Like
Yeah.
it is feasible to have all these things and to be able to give 100% to them, but you have to find the balanced structure. So, like you just brought out, this is fantastic for somebody who's at the heart of their career, but also is still at this pivotal point where they want to be a mom and they want to be a wife and they want to go and travel and see the world. You have no problem working hard and dedicating yourself to your craft, but now you're using this structure to be able to prioritize why you're dedicating yourself to your craft. You're doing it so that you can enjoy the life that you're building the life that you want to live, then you should be able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
This affords that opportunity in so many different ways.
Mhm. And from the other side of that too, it creates hustle where sometimes I
Mhm.
think there is actually hustle lacking
Yes.
in providers, and whether you're a provider or not,
Mhm.
sometimes people just come in, they want to hone it in depending on if they're paid incentives or hourly or whatever. Sometimes they're just like, "Meh, don't have patience, no big deal. I'm getting an hourly wage." Like if you're in
Mhm.
control of your fate, you will hustle on those hours that you're scheduling yourself in your
Absolutely.
room so that you can have that freedom. With your time to be able to pour into those other areas of your life as well. So I love that. To kind of get back to how you
Mhm.
left, you
Mhm.
gave 6 months, incredible. I mean, with someone with a role as important as clearly what your role was with the practice, giving a 2-week notice is almost a slap in the face nowadays when you're a
Absolutely.
really important role. A few months is very generous. 6 months, that's the most generous I've ever heard of anybody. So, kudos to you. That was really, really lovely. How else did you go? That's obviously going to put you a step ahead as far as not burning bridges, keeping really great relationships, maintaining the goodwill that you had already created through 14 years with your previous boss, right?
Mhm.
What did you do? What were those steps that you took in those 6 months to make it a really smooth transition so that it wasn't like pulling the rug out and everyone felt completely safe and they knew exactly what they needed to do, even though you came back the next week for an emergency patient thing? But which again is a testament to you and who you are as a human. But what were those steps? Can you share some of those things with us?
Yeah, I would love to. It's actually some of the work that I am most proud of and that I really enjoyed working through and working on. So, we did a few different things. We brought in a woman who I absolutely love. Her name is Karen. I recommend her to anybody. She is a co-founder of a company called Firepower Seminars, and she does incredible work specifically with women in helping teams to find their passion, helping them to find their stride, helping them to overcome communication issues and things along those lines. So we started to have her come in for some trainings and helped to facilitate just like the conversation around some of the shifts that were happening, why they were happening. But in line with that effort and really that investment, that's kudos to Dr. Allenby for taking the time and the initiative to invest in something like that to ensure that her team felt secure and prepared. But
Mhm.
we also sat down and we reformatted all of our roles and responsibilities. And we had roles and responsibilities throughout the years, and they obviously just change and they pivot through time. People come and go, they don't always get updated. So we did a massive overhaul in so many different ways. So new titles, new lists of roles and responsibilities. And then it sounds a little bit crazy, but everybody's brain sees things differently and needs to absorb information differently. And so we then distributed the information in like 3 or 4 different ways. So some people really like checklists. There's a checklist. Some people really like to read through like paragraphs and they need the details and they need the explanation. They need the why. We had that option for them. Some people just wanted a very brief overview. We had that option for them. We put this on a Google Doc that was shared amongst the entire team. So everybody saw everybody's roles and responsibilities. Everybody saw how it was outlined. Everybody could absorb the information in whatever way that they needed to.
Mhm.
And then we had meetings around it, but we incorporated that with the work that we were doing with Karen. And then we did one-on-one meetings around these roles and responsibilities. And I talked to them about what they're passionate about. What are you loving? What don't you love? What do you think you excel at? What's the hardest part of your day, the best part of your day? They were very lengthy conversations. And that's what we built the roles and responsibilities around. So over the years of practice, what we found, or personally what I found, was instead of trying to make everybody amazing at everything, like that's unrealistic and it's
Yep.
not fair. And we can't keep putting people in a place just because of the timing or just because they seem to be able to handle it. Like, let's put people in places where they can thrive. If they're already good at something, let's make them better.
Yep.
So we really tried to customize it around what they wanted and what they felt like they could achieve so that everybody really did buy into it.
Mhm.
Now, this sounds great. It looked great on paper, but functionally, like, you still run into things. It's
Of
still a
course.
process.
Of
Like,
course.
and I don't want anybody listening to this to think like, "Oh, that's all I have to do and it's all gonna work perfect, and if it doesn't, I'm a failure." No. Like, they're still working through these things, and they revamped it again after I left.
Yeah.
This is just life, but I think if you're open to having the conversations and you're open to doing the work, and I think if you can get everybody on the same page, like, what is the goal? We wanna be happy when we show up to work. We wanna feel like we can communicate with our coworkers. There was an amazing book that Karen recommended to us, and I think it's The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Yep, I love that book.
Oh,
Love that book. It's great.
incredible,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yep.
the key pieces in there, and the one thing that really stood out to me was if you cannot disagree with your team, you don't have a team. You
Right.
don't, right? And everybody's, all this, like, positivity and happiness, like, yes, we wanna be positive. Yes, we want to be happy. I want you to tell me if you don't think something's gonna work because of your experience. I wanna hear if you think this is a horrible idea. I wanna hear if, like, this just sounds boring and I just simply don't wanna do it. Don't just nod your head yes,
Yep.
because then we're all gonna be sitting in a place that we don't wanna be in. So if you have that
Exactly.
uncomfortable conversation up front and just lead with respect, you don't have to be like, "That's a horrible idea. What were you thinking?" Absolutely
You
not. That's
suck. No, it's
exactly.
very right, but those conversations only come in teams where there is a foundation of safety and people don't feel like their job, people are pitted against each other or they don't feel like they're always on the tightrope of maybe getting fired or something. So
Right,
the safety, as long as they feel safe and feel valued, we can have those open conversations with the mutual respect because
right,
no one has like we can act out of love or we can act out of fear.
right,
So it sounds like you guys have done an incredible job or had done an incredible job of creating an environment where people felt valued and where they did feel safe and they were respected so that they could have those very open conversations about what's important, what works, what doesn't work. But I totally agree with you. Having spent years and years in the practice as well, of course, there's going to be conflict. Of course,
of
there's going
course.
to be one person wants something, it doesn't work for the rest of the team. Why? Why not? But until the team feels safe so that they can actually bring those issues about,
Mhm.
um, you're not really gonna get anywhere and make progress.
Right, exactly. And you have to if you want to continue to move forward in a healthy way. And again, sometimes we got it right, sometimes we didn't. And there's absolutely bad days and there's absolutely good days and
Yeah.
but this is what we did to try to solve for the things. Not to mention, you also were merging two practices. Two practices that while owned by the same person were quite different in how we approached things and how we structured things and the communication styles. One was significantly larger and one was just a small, very tight knit group. And so, on top of, the changes of me, you also had two teams that were coming together and had to learn how to live together with these differences. One of the other things that we did is we actually pivoted to a 4-day work week for the team. And Body Squad had been living on that model for several years, but the L&B team hadn't. And again, this came with a lot of fluctuations, a lot of trial and error. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about it because, the L&B office was more robust. Body Squad offered 3 to 4 services, it was much smaller, it was much more compact, whereas
Mhm.
Dr. Allenby's practice, you have 3 different injectors, and then you have several women who are performing all of these med spa treatments, so it
Mhm.
just took a lot of fine tuning, a lot of organizing to try to navigate, but again, speaking to quality of life, yes, they were working 4 10s, but now they had a day during the week where they would just be able to handle life, right? You could go do your practical things, clean your house, go to a doctor appointment, do your food shopping, whatever you need to do, so that on the weekends, you actually could be with family, be with friends, relax, rest, do whatever you needed to do. You felt like you actually got a little bit of a reprieve and a little bit of a break so that you could come back more refreshed. At least that was the goal.
Mhm, mhm. Working through those, we made some big scheduling changes when I was in the practice as well, and, our doctor went from 5 days a week to 4 days a week, and
Okay.
so it's, compressing that schedule for we did more plastic surgery,
Mm,
so it's compressing the, consultations and the follow-ups and all of
mhm.
the things into a lot less time,
Yes.
but just making sure that your hours are effective and efficient, and then
Yes.
it does free up time and give you the availability to have that breathing time that you talked about, which is so important. Um, those are great pointers as far as really setting up a team, and again, of course, this is going to help you keep that goodwill as you're moving on into the next new stage of what you're
Yes.
deciding to do with your life. So now that you're, like, in the new job, is there anything you're thinking about differently? Like, with new perspective of now that this is just a totally different ball game for you from what you were doing with Allenby and Body Squad?
Yeah, I definitely think I'm striving to lead with balance. I think that one of the things that I learned about myself personally, when you care, right? When you're passionate, when you love what you're doing, it's very easy to get caught up in that and to burn yourself out. And once you're to that point, you're no help to anybody. So all the good you want to do and all the benefits you want to bring and all the impact you want to make goes out the window because you didn't do what you needed to do first and just approach it in a balanced way. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying I have that figured out. I'm just saying that I'm genuinely putting real effort towards it. I'm really trying to be realistic and be authentic and
Yeah.
be honest and just lead with what I know. I can share what I know, and then I want to hear what the people around me know. And then we should be able to have just an honest, respectful conversation about the best way to move forward. Whereas before, I think, keeping peace and keeping harmony was such a big thing for me, and I'm not saying I'm coming in here and blowing things up, that's not what I'm saying by any stretch of the imagination, and that's not even, like, a
Right.
dynamic here. I'm just saying that it's you have to sometimes I'm so quick to just respond, because I know what somebody may wanna hear, or I think I know what they're thinking, or whatever the case is, like, I've forced myself to slow down. I will pause. It's painful. It is painful. Like, I'm sure if somebody's watching me, I look so awkward in that moment because it's, like, uncomfortable for
You're
me
like,
to
"Don't
do.
don't
Just
no."
yeah, just face 'kay.
Yeah.
And just try to really breathe and, "You know what? Let me just think on this for a minute. Let me process it, and then can we circle back to this in a little bit?"
To kinda wrap things up, I
Mhm.
think you are a case study in how to successfully leave a job you love for something else that the universe might be calling you for, which I think is just an awesome, awesome story. So what advice would you give to somebody who's like, "You know what? I really love my job, and I think there might be something more out there. I'm not really sure. I love these people. I don't wanna pull the rug out from under them. What would be one or 2 things that you would just say, "Here's some really great advice for setting yourself up to not be the bad guy that ran away and left people empty-handed," or whatever?
I definitely think give yourself some time and really do a deep dive and try to find authentically what you're looking for and what you need. Really look at your whys. Why are you feeling the way you're feeling? Why do you feel like it's time to move on? Are these things that are within your control to change, or are these things that are not within your control to change? Because if you're just running from something that you have to navigate personally, you're going to find those same patterns present, and no matter how you move forward and where you move forward. So, if you give yourself some time to do that work and work through it, and then give the person that you respect time, if you can, if it's feasible. I understand that sometimes circumstances just don't allow for that. And that's a different conversation entirely. But I think if you're just honest and you lead with heart and express gratitude. One thing that I definitely saw when a lot of people left in the past was they left because they thought that they reached this level and they're just like, well, I've done it all and I'm here and now I'm just going to go and I'm going to soar. And obviously, we want nothing but for everybody to soar. That's the point. We're building into one another so that that actually can take place.
Yeah.
But you don't have to leave with that energy, right? Like you are where you are because somebody took a chance on you, somebody invested in you, someone believed in you. Give that the respect that it's due. Find that humility and lead with that because I think it's something that is important. You want to show how grateful you are. You wouldn't be where you are without them, no matter the good and the bad and the in between.
Mhm.
So, if you can try to incorporate that in your conversation. And one thing that I tried to do was sit down and ask her what she needed and what she wanted. What would make this better? What cadence do you think is appropriate? And just talk through it. And it's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy. I think it was hard and hurtful for both of us in different ways. And, it takes time, like you said, right? Like a little lemon juice might still burn a bit. Like
Yeah.
it's not like it's just all roses, but I think that when you reflect back, you want to be able to stand on your 2 feet and you want to feel a healthy pride around how you handled it. You want to feel like you were a good person and true to yourself. And I did everything within my power to show up as a good person. And what happened beyond that is outside of my control. So
Yep.
just again, give yourself time to reflect on that. If you can give them the courtesy of time, I think that there's nothing kinder that you can do.
Perfect. I love that. So, gratitude and asking, thank you for this opportunity and for everything you've done to help with my growth.
Hmm.
And with the transition, what can I do to make it as easy as possible for you and the team?
Hmm.
I think those are two of the best words of advice that I've heard in a really long time. I love that. And I hope for anybody that's listening that is thinking of making a move, again, no matter what situation you're in, you've learned a lot from the position that you've held. It doesn't matter
Absolutely.
if it's been all roses and rainbows and unicorn farts or if it has been really hard. But speaking from experience, all of the things that I've been through professionally, whether they were wonderful or absolutely awful, I can look back in with gratitude and say, I'm so thankful that I went through that because it's brought me to where I am today. And so I can't look back on it and say it was the worst thing in my life because it
Yes.
brought me to where I am.
Yeah,
Right. So
exactly.
just having that silver lining, looking at the perspective and figuring out what do I have to be grateful for is always going to put you more on the high road and thought of, I think, in a better light than trying to not appreciate how you've gotten the skills and the experience that you have.
Right.
I
Exactly.
totally agree. Well, thank you so much. I think that this is such a great conversation and really, really important for all of our listeners that are out there, maybe in the roles of their dreams, maybe just starting out in a role where they do want to grow in aesthetics, and just knowing that there's so much opportunity from where you started as a clinician and doing lasers and um, all the different services that you are providing into the operations, the administrative, the sales, and now this new venture that you're working through and providing an environment for other providers to come in and have freedom and really control their financial future, which is literally why I wake up every day is to provide
Yeah.
opportunity like that to other people. So thank you so much for all of that. Before we go, I do want to pose a question to you. So we do this super fun thing on this is always like love the interviews. I love talking to people. This has been so great, and this is, like, one of my favorite parts. We do this little segment, and it's called "She Did What?" And it could be a crazy patient story, an incredible coworker story, somebody did something absolutely asinine, or they went above and beyond, and you were just like, "I can't believe that somebody actually did that out of the kindness and goodness of their heart to make someone's day better." So wide spectrum that you could pull from,
Yeah.
but what is an experience that you had that you observed someone else just doing something wildly, outrageous, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent?
I feel like there's so many. This was a
I
really
know.
hard one, and I didn't know which direction to go in. I know it's gonna sound so cheesy, but I really had a team that knew how to go above and beyond. I
Yeah.
had incredible women that just it was insane what they would do for patients. So I feel like there's just way too many stories to pick from there, and I couldn't hone in on one. There was one patient who was an interesting duck. I mean, she truly just it was an adventure every time she came in, and, obviously, we ask all the appropriate questions to try to find out, if there's some medicine involved and if there's this going on, if there's
It
that
was
going
an
on.
adventure anytime she came in. That is incredible. Okay,
Yeah,
Bridget, go ahead. That was just
every
hilarious.
time. So she had been in, and all of a sudden, we noticed that our toilet's not working. And I'm like, okay, well, what's going on here?" And, we're a bunch of girls trying to navigate the situation and figure it out, and that's just making the situation worse. And so eventually we had to get a plumber involved because it really started to not work and it turned into an entire mess. And, when he pulled everything out, she had flushed a pill bottle down the toilet. Literally no idea why. I mean, at this point, we had garbage cans everywhere, literally everywhere, right in the
Yeah.
bathroom, in the rooms, anywhere you could possibly imagine. She was having a situation that day. She was in a mood. She was in a place, and I think we were just really trying to calm her down. And we don't know. We think she went into the bathroom and finished whatever was in there, and then proceeded to flush the and the plumber's just kinda looking at us, and we're looking at him, and we're like, "We don't even know what to say right now." Like, this is not us. Do not judge us. We are not just, like,
You
flushing
looked at
pills
the bottle, you
here.
were like, "She did what? She
Yeah,
flushed this down
like
the toilet?"
like, why? I just don't understand, but it was absolutely crazy. We had someone else bring a 100-pound dog in for her treatment that, was completely like one of the furriest animals you could possibly imagine, who was not a service animal, who just jumped all over everywhere the entire day. Thank God we did not have another patient. That particular day, I was covering a shift by myself, so that was really fun to navigate.
Oh my gosh, and then you had to
We
get the vacuum out and try and get rid of all that hair. Oh,
Yes,
good
and I was
lord.
like, "I'm not that person. I'm not good at that." The girls that I worked with were incredible at keeping everything, like, pristine, and so I just remember being like, "Listen, I did what I could do. This is not my fault. When you come in tomorrow, do not be mad at me, but you're gonna have some surprises."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we had a couple doozies, but, definitely not you look back and those are the fun days, like, you just laugh and it's things that bonded you and things that
Yes, exactly.
make you go
Remember when
like
that lady, she flushed the pill bottle and then the toilet overflowed all over the bathroom and it caused such chaos? Yeah.
such chaos. Yep.
That is too funny. Well, thank you for sharing that. I love it. That I'm sorry you had to go through it. It sounds a
It's
little
okay.
shitty, so to speak, but, I mean,
Uh,
what are you gonna do? It's a good
what are you
story to
gonna do?
tell in retrospect for
Yeah,
sure. Perfect.
exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
For any of
you.
our listeners out there that are looking for you online, where can
Mhm.
we find you, Bridget?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find Belvara on Instagram, LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
then we are brand new. So we just started operations in May, and you will find our website very shortly here. But definitely, please reach out. I'd love to have a conversation with you if you're interested in exploring this, even if you just want to talk through it, and just really see if this is something that will fit and if something makes sense at this point in your life. I can tell you from honest experience, I really can understand where you're coming from as you make these shifts. So I'm excited to be able to connect with practitioners on that topic. And I would love to have a conversation if you're ready to take that step into entrepreneurship.
That sounds fantastic. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much, Bridget. We super appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening out there in Practice Land podcast world. And we will be back with additional episodes next week.
Got a wild customer service story or a sticky patient situation? Send us a message or voicemail. If your tale makes it into our She Did What segment, we'll send a thank you gift you'll actually love. Promise, no cheap swag here.
Are you one of us? Subscribe for new episode notifications and more at practicelandpodcast.com. New episodes drop weekly on YouTube and everywhere you can listen to podcasts.